Environmental factors. For many traits, the genotype, which again describes the alleles that you may have, which are represented by the letters. The genotype is not the only thing that determines the phenotype. And phenotype, again, is your physical appearance, what it looks like. A couple examples of this is with the rabbit that I have drawn. If our little bunny rabbit grows up in a warm environment, its fur will remain light colored, the white little bunny. Fur remains light. If the bunny is exposed to colder temperatures, then the fur starts to darken at the extremities, so at the ends of the ears, around the nose, the feet. Maybe black is a little extreme, but it would be it would have some color in it as opposed to being light. So all of the extremities grows dark fur because dark colors absorb heat much better than light colors. And so in those cold regions of our bunny, it grows darker fur to help it stay warm. There's also a species of cats that does the same thing. The fur color is actually determined by temperature and not by only the genotype. So temperature is one of the environmental factors that affects phenotype. So we're adding temperature to our list. Another example is our turtle. Good little turtle here. Our turtle, and this is not true for all turtles, one species of turtle develops embryos that have no sex chromosomes. So this type of turtle has no sex chromosomes, which again means there's no male or female embedded in its DNA. The sex of this turtle is determined by the temperature that the embryo develops. So if our temperature of our embryo is a little bit warmer, it develops into a female turtle. If our embryo of our turtle develops at lower temperatures, then it develops into a male turtle. Again, the embryo is before birth, so we're not having our turtle switch from one sex to another. This happens before the turtle is actually born. But this type of turtle, it's called the slider turtle, does not have sex chromosomes. The sex of that turtle is determined by the temperature in which the embryo develops. So that's kind of an interesting example. Other environmental factors include things like nutrition. Height and weight are highly affected by nutrition, especially at a young age. And that's true for many species, not just humans. If you don't get adequate nutrition, you will not grow as tall as maybe your genes tell you to grow. We have temperature, nutrition, light, exposure to sunlight changes our phenotype as well. Think skin color, right? Some of us, when we were exposed to lots of sunlight, our skin color turns red because we sunburn, or maybe you tan really well, so it affects and that's all in the phenotype. It affects your phenotype. Skin color, hair color as well is affected by light. We're numbering our list here. Temperature are examples for temperature. I drew over here instead of writing them on our list. Examples of temperature. Some other examples are phenylketonuria. So this is an autosomal recessive disorder. Autosomal means it is carried on one of the chromosomes that's not a sex chromosome. And recessive means it has to be, you need two of those alleles in order for you to have this disease. So if our two parents are carriers, so we'll do capital P, lowercase p, capital P, lowercase p. So this means they carry the gene for that disease, but they don't have it themselves. Carriers. They could have a child that has PKU. This is abbreviated as PKU because phenylketonuria is, a little bit tricky to say. So if both parents are a carrier, we can figure out what the probability is of them having a child with PKU. And this is one of those newborn screenings. They test for this before the child even leaves the hospital, right after birth. So if both parents are carriers, you have a 1 in 4 chance that your offspring will have PKU. And that's true for each child that's born. It's not like you can have, if you have three children that do not have PKU, if you have a fourth child, that does not mean they automatically have the disease. It, again, just means there's still a 1 in 4 chance that they will have the disease. So PKU is autosomal recessive, and it's where the person cannot eliminate excess of an amino acid that's called phenylalanine. So it builds up in their body, which then is dangerous. Cannot remove excess phenylalanine. phenylalanine, which again is an amino acid. Amino acids, of course, are the great things that link together to build proteins. So if it is determined that a person has PKU, they can live a long and healthy life, develop completely normal, as long as they avoid phenylalanine in their diet. Avoid eating phenylalanine, which means they have to avoid eating many of the types of proteins. A lot of our proteins that we consume every day do have phenylalanine in them. And so if you have PKU, you have to be a little bit more strategic when it comes to getting your required amount of protein in your diet, because you need to find proteins that do not have phenylalanine in them. But other than that, if you can avoid eating phenylalanine, they develop completely normal, physically, mentally, all of those things. So again, we can kind of alter our phenotype by our nutrition. If we avoid that, then our phenotype will not be affected. There are other human diseases, like very, very common ones, big ones, heart disease, which is incredibly common, cancer, big regions of our population have one or both of these, and they are usually caused by a combination of genetics, and environmental factors. Heart disease and cancer both are said to run in families, which means there are certain genes that they have identified that don't necessarily determine that you will have heart disease or cancer, but they put you at a higher risk for developing heart disease or maybe cancer. And so it's, and that's outside of your control, right? You cannot change your DNA, but you can control your environmental factors, or what you've probably heard them called as just risk factors. Things like smoking, exercise, or of course, if we're going for the positive, we're going to not smoke. We are going to exercise. We're going to make good nutrition decisions, limit salt and lots of sugar, things like that. So we can control our risk factors, prevent heart disease or cancer, even if it runs in our family. So there we go. The environmental factors that affect our phenotype, even when our genotype is not changed.